On December 7th, 1977, 24 men were indicted in Boston on charges of rape, sodomy, indecent assault, and other unnatural acts with children. This is the house in Revere, Massachusetts, where this had been going on daily for 15 years. All the boy victims cited in the charges were 9 to 13 years old. Among those men indicted were a child psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, the assistant headmaster of an exclusive boys' school, and a teacher from that school. Other men were arrested in New York City. One of them is described in the New York Times as an independently wealthy Harvard graduate. 9 more were tracked to Connecticut, Florida, Hawaii, Maryland, Michigan, the Bahamas. The man who had been running the operation was now cooperating with the police, but not completely. He'd given up the psychiatrist and the headmaster, but he told the police there were some names he just couldn't give them. He was too afraid. When asked if he was referring to cops, he said no, but that was as far as he'd go. So who was he protecting? Certainly someone more powerful than a headmaster and some shrinks. Business leaders, media figures, politicians, maybe. But this guy was absolutely terrified. He talked about a contract being put out on him. Who could create that kind of fear? According to author and researcher David McGrath, only one group of people could inspire that kind of fear: the mafia. I have claustrophobia, runs in my family. In my case, the gene didn't kick in till about 10 years ago. Man, I hope there were no other surprise genes waiting to kick in. So for me, a nightmare scenario would be having to go through a cramped, narrow cave with a flashlight. Think of some of those caves in Spain with Paleolithic paintings. You have to crawl on your belly for like a mile to reach the cavern. This kid wouldn't want to see caveman stick figures that much. Well, that's how investigating these predators began for me. I just don't want to know. The subject matter is too disturbing. Give me a horror novel where at least there's a chance the main characters have a happy ending. Maybe I should rephrase. Well, at least they might survive. So for me, doing these stories is like going into that dark cave with a flickering flashlight. Almost anything else sounds like more fun. But there's a reason I slowly came to a decision to go forward. It's because I fear a lot of these predatory networks still exist. And the more we in the public are aware of it, the better the chance of exposing them and stopping these crimes. I don't doubt there are great cops doing what they can. However, nothing changes in our world without public pressure. Without public pressure, the work is left to a handful of lonely investigators. You and I are not on the front lines of the fight. That's okay. But at least we can try to understand what's going on, because that means everything to people that are on the front lines. Citizen investigators like Dave McGrath and Melanie Perkins, who we've met and will keep meeting through this series. Also a handful of retired police detectives around the country who do what they can. But it's a battle filled with years of frustration. Knowing we got their back means everything to them. So thank you for joining me and showing them that they're not alone. The 1970s wasn't that long ago. Victims and victims' families are still around. Also, many of the cops assigned to the cases. And some of the monsters. One of the things that opened my eyes was seeing how many people of high stature were involved in these crimes. How many powerful and influential institutions. It would be naive for us to think this isn't still going on. Powerful people like this will understand full well that everything you do online is being tracked. So what do you think they do? They go offline, avoid the internet. They operate just like they did in the time right before the rise of the digital world. And that time was in the 1970s. Dave McGrath is working on his next book, which will connect the production of child pornography to the organized crime crew of Roy DeMeo in New York, and also to the Patriarca family in Providence. The operation in Revere was more than just a brothel for men who liked young boys. It was a hub for the production and distribution of child pornography. The house in Revere quickly became notorious within the gay community. Word spread by doormen and bartenders at gay bars, in the back rooms of adult bookshops, bathhouses, directories of Catholic churches. I want to be clear, I'm sure most gay men are just as horrified by predatory behavior as anyone. But if you were hanging around in those circles in the 1970s, it wouldn't be hard to find people whose tastes were for younger males. How much has that changed? Dozens of such men visited the house in Revere every day. People came from all around the country. The victims referred to in the indictments were all boys between age 9 and 13. Now, these boys were paid, but is there any doubt that some of the men who found their way into that house had more violent tastes, sought unwilling victims? When you study psychopathy, you learn that for many men, the fantasy that they obsess over is the idea of taking someone by force. This is what drives serial killers. And the ultimate power over someone is life and death. Andy Puglisi disappeared in Lawrence, about a half hour north of Revere. David Lewison disappeared in Brockton, about a half hour southwest of Revere. Well, in Revere, another boy went missing. April 7th, 1974. Back then, city boys all across the country earned money by shining shoes. Remember the scene in Goodfellas?
Salud, Tommy.
No more shines, Billy.
What?
I said no more shines. Maybe you didn't hear about it. You've been away a long time. They didn't go up there and tell you. I don't shine shoes anymore.
Relax, will you, for crying out? What's got into you? I'm breaking your balls a little bit, that's all. I'm only kidding with you.
Sometimes you don't sound like you're kidding. You know, there's a lot of people around.
I mean, I'm only kidding with you. We're having a party. I mean, I just came home. I haven't seen you in a long time, and I'm breaking your balls, and you're right away you're getting fucking fresh. I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend you.
I'm sorry, too. It's okay. No problem.
Okay, salud. Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
There were a lot of kids back then and not a lot of money to go around. Enterprising boys earned spare change by shining shoes. At 10 years old, Lee Savoy was an enterprising boy. Suffolk Downs, a horse racing track in East Boston right next to Revere, billed itself as the place that had the most action $2 can buy. As seen in the...
There's still a place where a $2 bill can still buy a thrill at Suffolk Downs. For an action-packed day, come on out and play. Watch your horse pull away at Suffolk Downs. We've got the only thoroughbred action in town. At Suffolk Downs, the most action $2 can buy.
As seen in the Bronx Tale, racetracks were a popular place with the mafia.
And they're off. Expectedly, Kryptonite comes first from the gate. On the outside comes...
Good, here comes the cue. We didn't get shut out. We got it. See, come here. You get it in?
Yeah, I got it in, Sonny. It's all on kryptonite.
Beautiful. We got it. You hold. You hold.
Look at this horse go. Let's go one. Come on, baby. Take it over.
Look at this one move.
Come on.
This horse can't lose.
You can do it, kryptonite.
Come on, Kryptonite. Look, it's a lot. It's beautiful. Don't even worry. Come on, we can't lose.
Come on, one. Let's go.
I'm not even going to look because I know we can't lose. We can't lose.
Let's go one. Come on. He's a boy. Come on.
Come on, Kryptonite. Come on, Kryptonite, baby. Look at it. Forget it. It's over. It's all over. Danny, let's go.
That's it, kryptonite. Come on. Come on, kryptonite. You can win this race. Come on, kryptonite.
Come on, number one. Hang in there. Come on, number one. Let's go. Come on. Yeah, he bet the fucking horse. He bet kryptonite. Give me the tickets.
But Sonny, we're winning.
You can't win. Mush bet kryptonite. Fucking juice. Come on, you're the boss, number one.
5 links in the lead.
Come on. We've been mushed. Come on, kryptonite. Come on. Hang in there, guys. You're the boss. Come on, one. Fucking bit of juice.
Come on, one. You can still do it. Come on, one. Come on, kryptonite.
Come on, number one.
You can still do it.
Kryptonite. Come on. Hang in there. Hang in there.
Come on, take it home. Come on,
Hang in there. Hang in there.
No! Shit!
Lee lived 1 MBTA stop from Suffolk Downs. That Sunday morning, he asked his mother for permission to go down to the track to shine shoes so he could buy her an Easter gift. I'm only 2 years younger myself than Lee was, and I can tell you the fact that his mother would let him go off on his own like that was not unusual. They were different times. Parents let you run off and get into whatever you got into as long as you were home on time for supper. But Lee never came home for supper again. There's an odd aspect to the case. Lee told his mother he was going to the racetrack to shine shoes, but he stopped at a small restaurant by the MBTA station and left his shoe shine kit with the owner for safekeeping. According to Dave McGrath, he told the restaurant owner he was on his way to the racetrack. But why would he leave his shoe shine kit behind? He was wearing a T-shirt that said, "Try it, you'll like it," a jingle made famous at the time by a fussy kid named Mikey.
What's this stuff? Some cereal. It's supposed to be good for you. Did you try it? I'm not gonna try it. You try it. I'm not gonna try it. Let's get Mikey. Yeah. He won't eat it. He hates everything. He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
When you bring life home, don't tell the kids it's one of those nutritional cereals you've been...
Was this t-shirt a clue? Where did he get that shirt? It could be coincidence, but the shirt does have a suggestive phrasing. Is it a stretch to speculate whether someone preying on him might have given him that shirt? Someone exploiting his need for money. No trace was ever found of Savoy. No clue about what happened to him. This was 3 years before the sex ring was broken up in Revere. So that operation was at its peak when Savoy went missing. It was only 2 months before David Lewison disappeared in Brockton. 2 years before Andy Puglisi went missing just up the highway in Lawrence. The location of the boy brothel was only 2 miles from the racetrack. Savoy desperately wanted money. Like many other boys, he started shining shoes at the racetrack. No doubt there were plenty of men who were regulars at the brothel, but also went to the nearby track. The track would have been an ideal place to recruit boys into visiting the brothel for a few bucks. Savoy went out to make money that day, but strangely left his shoe shine kit with a restaurant owner, then continued on to the track. Why? Was there some other way he hoped to make money? He was wearing an oddly suggestive t-shirt that said, "Try it, you'll like it," a commercial that starred 3 little boys. Savoy was never seen again. The main suspect in the Andy Puglisi case was Wayne Chapman. Did Wayne ever visit that boy brothel? I see no evidence he did, but it would be almost shocking if he didn't. There's ample evidence Chapman visited adult bookstores to obtain and perhaps to sell illicit material. If he visited any in the Boston area, he almost certainly knew of the house in Revere. With people traveling from all over the country to visit that house in Revere, what are the chances that Chapman might miss out on the opportunity? During those probable visits, what kind of contacts did he make? Did he find other predators who fantasized about rape? Very likely. Did he deliver images he had produced during his own crimes? According to Dave McGrath, one of Chapman's clever predatory techniques involved venturing into the woods in areas he learned that boys frequented, spreading adult photos along a trail, and watching from a hidden place to see if any boys showed interest. In Providence, Chapman had become a leader of a 4-H club and regularly took boys out on camping trips. He raped many of these boys and got away with it for years. His young victims later described how Chapman would force them into his van, have his way, then show them Polaroids of deceased children. The implication was he had taken these photos himself, so if the boys were smart, they'd dummy up. Did Chapman take those pics himself, or did he get them from someone else? Chapman's fantasies seem to center on violence, but not necessarily on killing. However, others, monsters we'll soon meet in this series, did dream about killing and about doing things with the corpses. Chapman would become close friends with these guys. Other victims testified he showed images of gagged, hog-tied boys in the woods. A 9-year-old said he walked him into the woods, forced him to undress, then took photos. Then he let the boy get dressed. He told the boy he worked in an adult bookstore and that the pics were going to Playboy. This sounds like maybe an exaggerated version of the truth. It sounds like he did do some business with adult bookstores and that his work was published somehow. The 2 cities in New England where such adult bookstores were centered were Providence and Boston. He lived in Providence. From gas station receipts found in his apartment, we know he traveled the highways all around Boston. Almost certainly, he would have been a regular in those Boston adult bookstores. You might think all of this is irrelevant to modern investigations. Everything is online now, right? But savvy predators now understand that they can't put this material online. It will get discovered. In fact, very soon, if not already, artificial intelligence programs will be continuously scouring communications and devices for such content. So my guess is that already these guys are operating much as they did in the 1970s, through one-on-one connections. So Chapman probably got the idea that he could sell photos, maybe videos, from the bookstores he visited. However, there's another possible way he got involved in this business. This next episode will shock you to the core. It's about a connection that links a highly prestigious hospital pediatrician in Hartford, a Catholic priest, and Roy DeMeo, the notorious mafia capo in New York City. Thank you for riding the trail with us. It means a lot to have you by our side. And really, it means even more to these handful of investigators who are tracking down these monsters. So thanks for being with us. Please click subscribe, click notify, do whatever it takes to stay with us. Have a good one. Later.